Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about being tired. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, how is it possible to work on spare time projects when one gets exhausted after a day's job? I feel more like resting, exercising and spending time with friends in my spare time rather than on spare time projects. Well, uh, you've already sort of pointed at the thing that I usually say, which is that, well, if you already have the thing you want, you don't need to do something with the intent of getting the thing you want because you're already there. So, based on what you said, you already have a job. So, I assume now that your, well, that your goal is met because you don't want to build spare time projects, which if nobody's forcing you to do that. This comment was, you see, was posted on one of the videos that I was talking about in order to like skill up and like how do you get to the next level as a software developer, how do you get better and so forth. And basically what I say is that spare time projects or similar, not specific to spare time projects, but expanding your knowledge outside of what you do, well, depending on what you now do, of course, in at work and things like that, that's usually the way how you do it. It's education. It's literally the same thing. It's just that you don't go to school to do this. You do it by yourself, which is usually the telltale of someone who has adopted the idea of lifelong learning. And so, if your question is basically how do you have the energy for that, then I can only say you figure it out. Figure it out if this is important to you. As I said, usually if you have a job and the intent for you is just to have a job, then you don't have to do anything because your goal is met. But if you are intending to increase your skills and stuff like that, I hope it's pretty obvious that, well, you're gonna have to put some pressure on yourself, or like you're gonna have to do some exercising or training and practices. It's the same thing as you're mentioning. Like you want to do a physical exercise, go for it. It's exactly the same thing because you could just say that, well, I don't really care about being fit, so I'm not going to go and exercise. You could take that stance as well. And assuming now that you have, if you have a job where you do get some exercise and so forth, and or you have amazing genes or something like that, you might not need that extra exercise because you've already met your goal. And so the only thing I can tell you is that if you do find yourself in that position where you are, for example, not able to get it work, or if, let's say, for the sake of argument, that you can't get the sort of jobs that you want, or in some way you're not getting the results that you want, then all I can tell you is suck it up. Like I've made videos about how to get energy and like how to, you're exercising, spending time with friends, all of this sort of stuff. That is great. Like anything that you can do in order to raise your energy level. But I've said this in a few videos, guys, where like no one can do the work for you. And I'm very sorry to say that not every single person, myself included, are born extraordinarily gifted so they can like put in a fraction of the hard work that some people have to and just immediately get everything. Or some people have amazing genes and they like work out a little bit and they get super muscles and things like that. Life is unfair. Go figure. And as I like to say to people when I have to give them a little bit of tough love, no one cares what your excuse is. No one. It does not matter to anybody. But you can get like pity and like goodwill towards you and so forth because of your situations and stuff like that. But no one, not a single job is going to go, oh yeah, I understand that you clearly have other priorities in your spare time, so we're going to hire you even though you have subpar skill. No one does that. And if you really think about it, you wouldn't do that either. You wouldn't pay people for basically not being able to do the thing that you're paying them to do. And so the only tip I can give you is that you have to figure out like for me this is the best way, and this is the minimum thing I can say. Like if you can't even do this, then I mean just forget about it. I personally don't believe anybody can do better than this. That's why I say small projects are usually a good way to upskill and to get better at things, because you have to practice in order to get better. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be whatever you want. It doesn't have to be coding and so forth and so forth. But the thing you don't have to do is to make that a bother for you. You don't have to put yourself in a situation where you literally hate doing the thing. So what I like to do is that I make a lot of projects, very small ones, just things like to give you a very concrete example right now, like literally the thing I was doing before I sat down and just decided to answer this question was I'm trying to get a little bit better at CGI, or like computer graphics, using 3D modeling and things like that. So how do I do that? Well, I've said that in 100 videos before. I literally go on the web, search for a bunch of tutorials on different things that I have no idea about, because I've never, I'm a complete amateur, a complete beginner at this stuff, and I'm using Blender, the free 3D software for this, right? I've never done anything seriously in it, but I thought it was kind of interesting, and so I stack up a bunch of tutorials. I watch a bunch so I get some basic understanding of how the interfaces work and stuff like that, and then I literally sit down based on whatever they did in the video. So let's say modeling, for example. Right now I'm modeling a really shitty sword that I found on the net, on the web, because I figured out that a lot of the people who are showing how they do things and stuff like that, what they usually do is that they take a 2D image and create a reference, and then they kind of trace it with the tool, with Blender, and that's how they make their models. And my models suck, and that's okay, because I'm trying to get better at this thing, so it's gonna suck in the beginning. And then when I have done this a few times, I might find that boring, and so I go and watch a few other videos about something else, and I do something like I do animations, or I do something with geonodes or particles or whatever this tool is offering me. And I'm telling you, do exactly the same thing. You don't have to commit to these gigantic projects or have like a really strict schedule or stuff like that. If you one day don't feel like doing some extra coding or things like that, then don't. But I just want you to understand that nobody cares what your circumstances are. It's up to you to have the skills, and if you're really, really lucky, you already have them, and you don't have to make a bunch of side projects and stuff like that. It's only really if you're meeting your goals. If you meet your goals, then you're good. Like, you don't have to push yourself harder. But if you're not meeting your goals, you're gonna have to make some sacrifices, and you can make whatever sacrifices you want. You don't have to do the thing that I do, for example, which is like learn things in my spare time and stuff like that, because these are things that I find more enjoyable than, for example, other things that I could have put my time on. And there's no shame in that. There's no shame whatsoever. I'm just telling you that if you're like one of those people who say, I'm just too tired to go to the gym or stuff like that, that's okay. Nobody's going to judge you for that. But at the same time, nobody's going to feel sorry for you if you don't measure up. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you find yourself exhausted after work and things like that, and as I said, if you already have a job, don't worry about it. I've said this a million times, and I'm going to continue saying it. Guys, this idea that you as a software developer have to be like one of those crazy people who just sit and study all the time, that's not true. The average software developer does not actually do that. I promise you, because I've met hundreds of them by now, and I know for a fact that it is a very small minority of software developers who do the sort of extracurricular things that you're talking about and stuff. It's a tiny percentage. You think about it a little bit like Instagram and Facebook and all of these different platforms. You have like millions and millions and millions of followers who just are there to consume, but it's really only a small portion of the total amount of users that are actually creating things and stuff like that. So try to remember that when you're be nice to your open source maintainers and people like that, because they're very special. They're helping our community and they're doing really, really great work, but they are a minority. And most software developers don't do that. And as long as you have the skills to get your job or like meet the goals that you want, don't worry about it. Nobody's like, then you live the life that you want to live. I'm just telling you that don't make excuses for yourself so that you can avoid having to make some sacrifices, because those sacrifices, if you're really lucky, they're really low because you have a lot of talent or circumstances, stuff like that. But in some cases you're going to have to buckle up a little bit and roll up your sleeves and get to work in order to get to where you want to go. Because sadly, as I said, most people don't really care. Like, if you are on the if you go into an interview, it doesn't matter if you're working 3 or 5 jobs or so forth, they're going to treat you most likely just as everybody else, and that is either you are good enough and they like you and then you get a job, or they don't like you and your circumstances usually don't come into play here. Sometimes it might differ, but I just want you to understand that it's really important to not try to make excuses for yourself. Rest when you're tired. Do the thing that I suggest. If that's my style, you might have a different style. Make a bunch of garbage projects, just stuff that you like when you feel like it. Just make sure that it happens, so you don't sort of do the thing that some people who go to the gym do. They go every once in a while and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden they're back to just watching TV again. The repetition is necessary in order to get good at something, regardless of what it is, but it doesn't have to be a pain. If you can get to that point where you can just play around with some stuff and then throw it to the side and play around with some other stuff and so forth and so forth, as long as it's happening, it's all good, because you are going to learn something from it. And the better you get, I mean, hopefully in like a year or two, or depending on how long I find interesting, I might be going from making really shitty little swords like I'm doing now to making really big or really nice shitty swords, or like whatever it might be. Like your skills increase, and therefore your experiments and how fast you are and how well everything goes for you is also going to you're going to up level that. And so that's the thing I suggest that you do. Try to create a learning strategy that is not painful for you to maintain, but at the same time understand that if you don't meet the requirements of whatever you're trying to do, that is sadly all up to you, because nobody can do the work for you. You have to want to invest something in order to get something back. Have a great day.